Testing.
Hello again, everybody, here on Sports Chat on Community Media. Jeff is on an assignment, and so I'm the starting pitcher tonight. So with the starting pitcher, I had to go to the bullpen as well. I got Brady right over here.
Hello.
So everybody knows Brady. Brady, you're your fourth, fifth time here on the show?
Yeah, at least.
You know, you're going to lose the rookie status and get, like, the veteran
Yeah.
status soon. Yeah. So we got a good show tonight. And for the people out there tracking, this is show 885. 885, slowly creeping up to that 1,000. I should say slowly creeping up to 900. 900 looks like it's going to be some point in September. 1,000 TBD. Just worry about one, milestone before we get to the 1,000 there. But it's good to have you back on there, Brady.
Yep, thanks for having me.
So there's lots of stuff to talk about in the sporting world. But let's start out with the shining star. What's your shining star for the?
Mine definitely would have to be Ronald Acuna Jr. He's coming off of a Achilles tear, and in the very first pitch he saw in an MLB game, he hit 467 for a home run. That's a statement entrance back from injury, and for a Braves team that is really needs some offensive life. So it'll be good to have him back.
Yeah, it was a great statement there for the Braves and Acuna. You have Acuna in that lineup. It helps everybody around. Because where he was batting in the lineup, there's fillers and all that there. Not to say the lineup was not good there without Acuna. It's just it's almost getting like it's not really mid-season, the 1/3 way of the way of the season, and you get Acuna in your lineup. It just does wonders. And where they're sitting at, we'll dive deep into the divisions and such there. But I like the directional path there for the Braves, because where they're standing at right now is in middle grounds. Because right now, you look at their record being 25-27. They got a key, series with the Phillies. So that right there can kind of bring them up and kind of see. But I like that shining star with Acuna, and I'm going to stick in the diamond, and I'm going to go with the Tigers ace pitcher, Cy Young favorite, Tyreek Skubal. I always butcher his name. I think I said that correct this time. I was practicing, a couple times trying to say his name correctly. But this picture is just in a different planet than the others.
Yeah, for sure.
You look at what he just did over the weekend against the Guardians. He had a complete game shutout. You don't see shutouts too often in baseball anymore. Mm-mm. And to have a pitch count under 100 and striking out 13 batters, and with his last pitch of the game basically being 103 miles per hour is just phenomenal. I just, you look at where the Tigers are at right now, and having the best record in the American League, and then looking at the National League. I mean, they have really the best record winning percentage in all of baseball, 35-20. You have an ace like that, just a bulldog among bulldogs.
Yeah.
I like the direction of where the Tigers are at right now, and have an ace like that. Even if you have, I don't know what their longest losing streak is, but having a pitcher like that there as a game stopper, if you're on a 3-game losing streak, a 4-game losing streak, the Tigers always feel confident, like, hey, we got, an ace with, Skubal out there. And then you have Flaherty. So you look at that, I like, the directional path that the Tigers are on there. So
throwing against the Guardians is also impressive, because interdivision foe, they're going to see him the most of many other teams. So they were familiar with Skubal for sure.
Mm-hmm. So that's the shining star. We'll be talking a lot of baseball, so we'll get back to that in just a second there. The hot seat. Who are you going with for the hot seat?
I'm going to have to go with Anthony Edwards after his Game 4 performance. Going into the beginning of the season and playoffs, he was being compared as like the face of the NBA, even drew Michael Jordan comparisons, and then to go out and only shoot, I think it was 13 shots and score 16 points in a pivotal Game 4. Now that they're on the brink of elimination, that just is not what you want to see out of someone who's supposed to be the face of the NBA. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Shea, who has just won the MVP, took over that game and won at the free throw line, shockingly. But
Yeah, I mean that game, I felt it felt like the Thunder were up by like 20 points.
Yeah.
They just had that hold on, hold grip on the T-Wolves. They just, every time that Minnesota would go on a run, and then the Thunder will just, match that and go one better.
Yeah.
It's just, did they go wire for wire, with the lead the whole way through? I think maybe Minnesota had, maybe a
yeah, I think a little bit.
lead there, but all in all, every time, throughout the game, it was OKC all the way through, and it shows the vast difference of what Game 3 was. Do you look at Game 3 as basically a throwaway?
Yeah, I think that, especially because I think like Jalen Williams and like the starters played I think less than 20 minutes out of a 48-minute game. So it's like you can't even. It could honestly have just been a rest game, and it's crazy to say in a playoff game, but
That's how I looked at it, because you look at with the deficit that they were down at half, you're not going to win the game.
yeah,
Why you're not going to win the battle, but you're trying to win the war.
exactly.
You're going into Minnesota. It would be nice if you won that game, but you just kind of look at the long picture. You already won 2 at your home court, and then to even it, which that's what happened now. For Minnesota, the games at Minnesota, for OKC to go 3-1 now, I think they were going to end it in OKC.
Yeah, I would be. No way. 6 is probably pushing it. There's no way it gets to 7. I agree. I think it just ends in OKC.
Yeah, I said this last week with Jeff. I looked at this as a gentleman's sweep, which I know Jeff likes those gentleman's sweeps there. I looked at it as going 5 or 6. I didn't see the core with Anthony Edwards, and they've been playing well. I just didn't see enough out of them to now win 3 in a row. I don't even see it going 7. The way the record is for OKC at home is just ungodly.
Yeah, absurd.
So that's where I'm going at. So my hot seat is sticking with the basketball. I'm going with the Pacers. The Pacers on the opposite end is home. Where OKC is on the road, and you try to get a split. Split is right. To lose that game, being up by 20, now instead of looking at a commanding 3-0 lead, now you're looking at a 2-1. It wouldn't shock me if this series is tied.
Yeah.
After tonight,
Especially after Halliburton, they put like a whole like hold on the city of New York, just like put them all in shock after the insane comeback win, and then a more dominant Game 2 win. It's just like they had them right where they wanted them, and you can't afford to lose a game at home. But if they win, I think is it tonight?
Yeah, tonight is Game 4.
If they win tonight, I mean, still 3-1 lead, but it's just one you can't blow a lead like that, like you're saying.
Would you say this is a must-win for both teams?
Yeah, because if I'm the Pacers, I don't want to go back tied to New York, because that means the Garden's going to be even more electric. Yeah, and then obviously for the Knicks, you can't afford to go down 3-1.
Yeah,
so
it's crazy to say a must-win for both, because both teams can't win.
Yeah.
But I look at it in a stance. If I have to pinpoint which team is in a must-win over the other, I could see New York coming back from a 3-1 deficit, especially with 2 of the games being in New York. I think that plays pivotal.
Yeah.
So I think this is more of a critical game for the Pacers. I just don't see them winning the series if it's 2-2, because to go back to because if it's 2-2, I see it going 7 games.
Yeah.
And anything could happen in a 7-game series or game 7. So you look at it that way, you basically need, Halliburton and everybody else, the players around, to have a phenomenal game. So that's where, I still have the Pacers winning in 6, but it really falls upon on what happens tonight.
I mean, also, if you look at the Pacers' 2 wins, it's an improbable comeback win that, they probably won't be. Well, they've pulled off a couple of them so far.
I was
but
just getting ready to say,
Yeah.
I didn't want to put salt in the wound there.
Yeah. But still, crazy comeback. And then Siakam poured in, I think it was almost 40 points. So,
Yeah, the other game there,
yeah, you got to think of, are you going to be able to get that again? Take what you got and go with it. You don't want to give anything back to the Knicks, especially because they're a very talented team with good chemistry. So,
Do you the factors of tonight's game is if the Pacers score under 100 points, I don't see them winning. The defense for the Knicks, and the other thing is with this series, it's so fascinating, is the team that starts out fast, in the first quarter, second quarter, the first half in general, loses the game.
yeah.
They just can't hold a lead. And that was almost going back to the Boston series with New York. You just couldn't hold a lead. I know game 3 for Boston, New York, Boston just steamrolled them
Yeah,
the whole way
slaughtered 'em.
through. So, and then when you have that injury with Tatum, that kind of put any hopes for them to win. I know they won 1 game there, but just kind of coming back from that there. But, so you look at the Pacers, they come back from deficits. You look at the Cavs game, you look at, the others.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't count them out when they're down by a large deficit. But
Yeah.
it would be interesting. That was my hot seat there. And, there's, usually there's weeks where there's easier hot seats there, but I couldn't find any that were, easier set there. There's no suspensions, there's no like this there. So once I saw if OKC would have lost yesterday, I would have put them on the hot seat there.
Yeah.
But, losing by 40 some points and then the next night or the next game you win, it
Yeah.
kinda,
Evens it out.
evens
so.
that out there. Do you look at what team out there can you see beat the Thunder? I think the Thunder.
Yeah.
I think the team that can beat the Thunder is themselves. I don't see any team in the East running
No.
or staying with Oklahoma, City. It's just the way their style and the way that they run. I don't.
Yeah, I can't picture them dropping more than 2 games in the finals against either the Knicks or the Pacers. I think they win in 6.
Yeah, and
comfortably.
they're going to have home court.
Yeah.
So you look at that, and then Minnesota. I mean, they have to run the gauntlet. If somehow they can win 3 in a row, I think they will. Do you look at them as a favorite to Indiana or New York? I look at it almost an even series.
Yeah, I think that the Knicks would be favored over the Timberwolves, and the Timberwolves would be favorites over the Pacers.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of splitting hairs there.
Yeah.
But, it looks like we got a caller here on Sports Chat. Welcome to the show. Hello?
How you doing?
Hello there? Is this Robert there?
It is.
Yes, there. What's on your mind?
How's Corey doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I got the starting the game today. So Jeff is on assignment. He'll be back next week. So I got the hosting duties today, and I'm not by myself. I got Brady right beside me here. So what do you want to chat about?
I got the racing news for you.
What was that?
I got some racing news for you, anyway.
You got some good news to spread or racing results? All right. Well, that is good news. All right.
At least I've got 3 races in so far this year.
Okay.
And can I ask you any points with me too, while you're here?
Sure. Yeah. Fire it.
And not specific order.
Okay.
Number 5,
All right.
CJ Seth.
Okay.
Number 3,
All right. Number 3.
Troy Logan.
Troy Wagaman makes the list again there. I'm going to guess the next number is 2.
No, number 4,
Number 4.
very own Denny Dietrich.
Danny Dietrich. All right, so we got 2 numbers left. I'm going to go with number 2.
No, number 1.
Number 1, of course. What you got there?
We have Anthony Macri.
Macaroni. All right, number 2.
And then number 2 is Fast Freddie Wimmer.
Fast Freddie Raymer.
Sorry, I haven't talked to you guys for a while.
What was that?
Sorry, I haven't talked to you guys for a while. I've been busy.
Yeah. I think Carl's going to call in later on, so we might get some fierce college football talk maybe. So what else is on your mind there, Robert?
So how's everything with these thorough rejections?
Ejection tracker, yes, yeah. That was I was just getting ready to talk about that with the baseball. We are up to 47. I forgot what it was last week. I think it was 36, but 47 is the number. The breakdown of that is 25 managers, 12 players, and 10 coaches have got the early exit during the games. So 47. You look at we're 1/3 of the way there, so times that by 3. It looks like I might be short of my projection. So, I think what you said, 200?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's going to hit. Maybe maybe in the summer when the weather heats up and it gets hot out there, and the nerves get shorter and shorter, something might happen there. But anything else there, Robert? I think someone else is trying to call in. I think I had a message on here that someone's trying to, get in on the show.
So you know that my favorite buddy,
What's that there, Robert?
Carl.
Carl? It could be Carl.
Carl.
It could be. You have anything else there, or?
I think that's going to be about 59 next week.
What about 59?
69
Six-
for the tracker.
Okay, 69. Okay. Well, I got that on the paper. I don't have my big sheet here like Jeff usually does. I got my piece of paper, so that's what I'm rocking with.
Are we doing trivia tonight too?
Well, yeah, we're doing trivia tonight too. Yeah. What's
And my name for tonight will be food related.
blue related? I'm gonna guess like a blue sky. Blue.
No, I said food related.
I think food related.
Oh, food related. I was thinking, why would you have something blue? I was thinking I don't know, blue. I can't think of too many things that's blue, but food related. All right, I am intrigued. I think it's probably going to be spaghetti. I'm probably going to be wrong now because I just guess what I think it's going to be, but I'm eager to figure out. Anything else there?
Maybe like that.
Anything else there before?
I give it a little hit. It could be like Subway.
It could be Subway. Yeah, I'm eager to find out and see in about 40-some minutes from now. Well, Robert,
Well, if you're out there, I'm hanging out.
all right. So there we go. There goes Robert with the unorthodox way of getting a top 5. I think, yeah, he went 5, 3, 4, 1, and 2. No one else out there does it like what Robert does. But so, changing gears. No pun on that. No pun on that there. Looking at the baseball schedule, or the baseball, we're now at the 1/3 mark of the season. Hard to believe. 54 games. Most of the teams have played 54 games. What is your biggest surprise after 1/3 of the season in the books?
Well, biggest surprise is definitely how bad the Orioles are. As a fan, it's hard to watch. But a more positive side is, like you mentioned earlier, just how good the Tigers are. Especially because no one really saw this coming. I mean, they made the playoffs as the 7 seed last year, and now jumping up until being the best team in baseball, it's pretty awesome to see.
And to be sellers, for that matter, to trade Flaherty and to get him back.
Yeah.
You know, it looked like, yeah, they were just trading all their pieces, and yeah, they're even talking about Schoolboy being, traded as well. Last year there was rumblings, not a whole lot of rumblings there, but they were, sellers. They were definitely not buyers. And you look at the path that they're taking, I like the way that they're going. Now, surprise, it's so hard to vary a surprise to living up to expectations. You could say Judge batting 400, batting the way he is. So I would say I'm surprised that he is able to maintain that.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't see him batting 400. I don't think he's even batting 400 right now. I think it kind of dipped. I think he's like, 392 or something like that.
Around there.
But for the majority, for an achievement like that, to be batting over 400, I think I saw something was like, what's the likelihood of him batting 400 or having 60 home runs? I'm like, that's a no-brainer. It's going to be the 60 home runs. Because there's going to be a point in time where they're not going to pitch to him. They're going to pitch around, and they're going to give him the Barry Bonds treatment and kind of go. It's just phenomenal to see his stats right now and just see where he's at. But for a team-wise that I'm surprised upon, it's so hard to say. Like, the Cubs, I think they were expected to be there.
Yeah. PCA, Pete Crow Armstrong is playing very well, along with the new addition Kyle Tucker. Mm-hmm. They're really coming together, and they got some questions on pitching, but they're pitching so well so far. So
yeah, I think the thing with PCA, I think he is having one of those breakout seasons. I mean, he was in the league last year and and kind of making a name for himself. That kind of transitions to who could be the MVP in the National League. There seems like there is so many options.
Yeah.
Because the last couple years it was just write Ohtani's name and it's done.
Yeah.
Basically, the treatment of what we're seeing from Aaron Judge in the American League, he's got the MVP sewed up, and we still have over 100 games left of the season. For the National League, it just seems like it's so wide open. You could have I wrote this on my notes there. Liable candidates. You got Ohtani, Tatis, Corbin Carroll, Pete Alonso, and then I didn't even put down PCA.
Yeah.
So
I mean, especially after he's making himself a lot of money, especially because Churio signed I think it was like $110 million deal, then they gave a similar one to PCA, and he declined it. Said, "I'm going to do better," and then he's coming out here playing like an MVP.
Yeah. And that's where you're you're banking on yourself, and that's what Judge
Yeah.
did, 2-3 years ago, and kind of like, you know what, I'm going to bet on myself, I'm going to win, and this is how I'm going to do it. And you look at that, it's a phenomenal list there, and it's nice to just see a list like that of players, and it just kind of shows. I wouldn't, I would say the National League. I would say is more stacked than the American League.
I would agree.
You look from top to bottom of the teams, and it's definitely a battle. You got the Phillies that are 34-19. There's some flaws with them, but not a whole lot of flaws. But you look, the Mets 33-21, the Cubs right there. We talked about. Now, the Dodgers 31-21. Most people would assume, the Dodgers, are going to be right up there. They're going to win the division. They're going to make, they're going to make it this run. I'm a little concerned with the Dodgers. The reason why I'm a little concerned is their pitching. They have this abundance amount of pitching, but they're kind of using the arsenal of pitching.
Yeah.
Kershaw is not the same Kershaw. Kershaw is basically a 4-5. In most, he's a 4-5 right now in that rotation.
Yeah.
In most of the league, he wouldn't be a starter. He would be for the Orioles, he'd be a starter. But for the most part, he wouldn't be a starter in most of the teams out there. But they need depth. And he brings a veteran presence, but just the injuries going through, and Gosselin hasn't been the same, and Ohtani, they're not going to rush Ohtani.
No, yeah.
And the thing with that division, I said this countless times, and I'm going to say it until I'm blue in the face, is you have to beat the Rockies. You have to take advantage of that, because that division is going to have 3 teams make the playoffs. And that puts pressure on the Central. That puts pressure on the East.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to make the playoffs as a wild card. You have to win your division. And you have to, for the teams in the West, the Dodgers, the Padres, the Giants, the D-backs, you're going to have to take advantage of those 13 games with the Rockies. And just, thinking about the Rockies, just think if this was not the balanced schedule and you're playing 19 games against your divisional foe.
Yeah.
I'm looking at their schedule, and it's just amazing that they have not won a series. Before we started the show, I was looking at their wins against opponents, and being 9-45, I could see them breaking. They're going to make the 2024 White Sox look
good.
like a World Series
Yeah.
contender. With the amount of wins that, or lack thereof wins that the Rockies could get there. So, you kind of feast at it, and which kind of brings me to the point of what teams in the playoff picture right now will be out of the playoffs, come October. Because 75% of the time, if you're in the playoff picture right now, you're going to make the playoffs. So kind of looking at it quick before we take the phone call there. So we have, in the American League, we have the Yankees, Tigers, Mariners, and then the wild card would be Guardians, Twins, Astros, with a tiebreaker with the Royals tied with the Astros. So what in the American League do you see slipping out of the playoffs?
I would say probably. This is tough because you say the Twins, are they in?
Yeah, the Twins are in by a game there.
I would
So
probably say that the Royals would overtake the Twins then for the last wild card spot. So
I would say the two teams. I like the divisional teams that are in right now.
Yes.
I think those 3 will make it, and I think I could see the Twins and the Astros being knocked out.
Yeah.
Kansas City making it, and then there's going to be a team in the weaves there. You look at the AL West race; it is so tight, and that's why I'm not going to count the Orioles out. I'm optimistic on this 3-game winning streak. I would say optimistic. See what happens in about 2 weeks. You want to go 8-3 in these next 11 games. See what happens, but I will still go on references. You have to be above 500 or at 500 to be in the playoff conversation. And the last time I checked, the Orioles are 15 games under 500. So I'm gonna pump my brakes and go with things that I say. So, but yeah, I'm gonna go with 2, and then quickly over the National League. We have the divisional leaders with the Phillies, Cubs, and Dodgers. The 3 wild cards is the Mets, Padres, and Giants. Who in that list do you see?
I would definitely say the Giants because they started out the year 8-1 and then have been playing like 500 ball since with struggling pitching, and there's new acquisition on the offensive side. Willie Adames is supposed to be a star, has just not been what they paid him all that money for. So they can, especially in a stacked division with the Diamondbacks, Dodgers, and Padres, it's going to be very tough for them to continue to stay in that, like in the playoff race.
My bold prediction, I said this at the beginning, so I'm going to keep this statement here. I got the Reds winning the division. I know right now they're 27-28, it's still early. I like their pitching. Right now, I'm a little wary that they will win the division, but I'm still going to go with my prediction there that they will win the division. And then I think the Cubs will get a wild card. I think the Cubs will overtake the Giants there. So that's my one team that's outside that could look in. So, but it's still a long ways away. But we have another caller here on Sports Chat. Welcome to the chat. Hello there. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to the chat here with Brady and myself.
How's it going?
I'm doing good. Doing good. How you been?
Great. How are you?
Doing well. Crazy week of sports throughout the weekend, and we got basketball playoffs, hockey playoffs. We got starting to get to the 1/3 of the like I said throughout the baseball season. We got college
baseball starting this weekend.
to happen there. So a lot on the docket there. What stuff do you want to branch about?
I first want to make this statement that the certain guy is listening. Carl, your Penn State Athletics may be the best college athletic program in the country.
Whoa.
That's
Okay.
not just speaking football, that's speaking all sports.
Yes. Yeah. They had a.
Don't worry, I will never root for Penn State because I'm a diehard Carolina fan.
Yeah. For viewers out there, this is the other Corey that did Sports Chat for a number of years there with Jeff there, big UNC fan there. So I'm right with you there with the Penn State message there. But they had quite a banner of a year with sports. So not too many schools out there can be at that feat there of with the wrestling and the lacrosse and the football and I'm not sure with the baseball right there, but just
They missed out on the tournament.
a stellar of a season in 2024, 2025 there. So
Yeah, certainly. The wrestling program is a dynasty that will never be touched again. The football program every year is a question mark, but I think they have what it takes this year to get it done.
yeah, it's going to be interesting. That's something that I want to talk about on the show. There was what's your thoughts on this new playoff format? I think it should have always been like this. The top 4 teams getting a bye. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't know if it's going to make that much of a difference. Your best teams are going to be playing at the end of it. You know, did Ohio State need a bye this year? No, they ended up winning it all as the 8th seed. And they didn't need that first round bye, where ASU got the first round bye. They didn't get past Texas, and Boise State didn't get past Penn State. So, to me, I think those teams that had the bye ended up playing worse.
I would definitely agree with that, because I remember on my winter break I came back, we were talking about the college football playoff and how it's such like a weird year having like Arizona State and Boise State receive byes for winning their conferences and the ACC champion be the 12 seed. And like when we were previewing the bracket, we said that Ohio State, Oregon could have been the national championship if they were seeded differently. And that game, I said that the winner of that game would go on and win it all, and Ohio State just happened to be the winner of that game. So
Yeah, I think what this does is it basically makes the first round, I guess, watchable, or you're not going to have like, you know, the Boise State and Penn State where one team is, I'm not going to say, kind of like superiorly dominant to the other team there. So I think you're going to have more of a close niche of a matchup where one team is not going to win by so much. I think some of them were basically blowouts there, but I think it's just going to be more of a closeness of a matchup there.
I think I'm going to disagree with you on that. Because your first round matchups were Penn State, SMU, Ohio State, Tennessee. Your second round matchups, that's where you have Penn State, Boise State, ASU, Texas. I think your first round games are actually going to be more unwatchable because you have the non-Power 5 schools that will get in because they won their conference and they got to play the really talented teams in the first round. Now, your second round, your games are going to be really enticing to watch, but I don't think they did any favors to get ratings up on the first round by any means.
I mean, it's kind of hard to tell right now. We're kind of looking at a big vacuum right now. We don't even know what matchups are and this and that there, but I see what you mean. The 12-5 matchup with the group of 5 school playing, just say,
SEC runner-up or something like that.
Penn State or Oregon or something like that. So that right there could be a blowout. The other ones I could see, there could be a chance where, you get an upset or something like that there. But it's so hard to tell, in the surface at the moment there. But I just like the fact of, that we're not going to get like a Boise State or some, a school that, yes, they won their conference, but then you have other conferences kind of on the weaker side, then you get a bye. I think, your top 4, whether it's 3 in the, the SEC or 2 in the Big Ten, I would rather just the top 4, the best teams get that bye, whether conference is overloaded.
The conference aspect of it too will be interesting because you'll probably end up seeing more conference matchups in the playoffs because of the new seedings now.
Yeah. I don't think it did any of the Pac-12 any favors. Well, it's now the Pac-2, but it didn't do them any favors, and I think we already made a change the year prior to expanding it to 12 teams. Did we need to make another change a year later? I don't think we needed to.
And the thing is the playoff expansion is going to, this is only a 1-year deal, and then in 2026, it looks like it's going to be, a 16 field playoff or 14 team playoff. So I was never the one to expand, but it looks like this is just in the works of just seeing how, a 16, 14 team playoff is. But I don't know. I don't want the regular season to be watered down.
Yeah, well, my thing is, you can expand all you want, but look at the NCAA tournament in college basketball. They can't expand anymore.
No.
At a certain point, you're just gonna want to have every single team in the tournament, and you gotta have your select few. And if the team is crying and complaining about not being able to get in, well, you gotta put your regular season schedule. That's the simple answer.
Yeah, I'm right with you on that there, Corey. Any other thoughts there? I know we're kind of running on the clock there, but I'm glad to have you back on the show and kind of hear your point of view and opinions on all things sports there.
I'll add something real quick. Along with what he was saying earlier, is if we keep expanding, it's going to make the games more unwatchable because you'll be having a 1 versus 16 seed, and it's just you've seen those matchups during the regular season. They're usually just blowouts anyway. So expanding is just going to make the viewership or possibly go down and the games worse. So.
And that's why I don't think we should have two power conferences. If we go Big Ten and SEC, like they're just going to beat up on each other. That's why I don't really like realigning all these conferences. Look at the SEC this year: Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee. They all beat up on each other.
In Texas, yeah.
And it did them no favors.
No.
Yeah.
So if you want to play by the win in the regular season to be able to get in, I don't think realigning these conferences is going to help at all because it's just going to continue to be a beat up of each other. And one team's going to get the bad end of it and not going to be left out. So
yeah, I can completely agree with you on that point there. Like I said there, Corey, it was good having you back on there, and you're always welcome with your opinions and perspective there.
Yeah, sorry I called in so late, guys. Have a great night. I'll try and catch you all.
Sounds good there. Thank you there, Corey. So any parting thoughts there?
Nope, not really.
Well, next week, get your balloons, get your confetti, because next week we are celebrating 38th birthday for Community Media. And you're probably thinking, Corey, what does that mean? Well, you got to sit down because we're going to have some live sports chat live. I'm telling you, live. You got to stick around next week and see. We got live trivia live. See what happens. We got live music, open house with Rebecca Foster. So, stick around next week, see what happens. And, we're going to have Jeff next week back, from assignment. So I'm looking forward to that. And with that, we got trivia in 14 minutes. So have a good one, and thank you. We out.